Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking all about email best practices for writing fundraising emails. So we'll be talking all about subject lines, layout, design, CTAs, all that good stuff to kind of level up your fundraising efforts. So I want to just give everyone a couple minutes to trickle in. So if you've already joined, go ahead and drop in the chat if there's a specific email campaign that you're currently working on or have coming up that you are looking to level up, and that might be why you've joined us today. I want to kind of get a read of the room, see what everyone's focused on. So yeah, go ahead and drop some campaigns in here just to kind of see what everyone's up to. Welcome to anyone who is joining. Okay, give to the max day this fall. Awesome. A show. Oh, I'm echoing. Can someone else confirm if I'm echoing? I'm not sure what would be happening on my end to cause that. Okay. Seems like other people aren't hearing it. Okay, good. Yeah, Nicole, I'm not sure if there might be something happening on your end. Maybe try muting yourself. Hopefully that helps. Sorry about the echoing. Okay, membership appreciation invitation. Love that. We're going to be talking a little bit about appreciation, like sharing impact, thank yous, kind of keeping up with people year round, not just when you have to ask them something. So that's an important piece of a good email marketing strategy is just keeping up with people, staying on their radars. Summer giving campaign. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you have some summer efforts coming up. Summer recreation for youth and foster care appeal. Awesome. Okay, 2 windows open. Yep, that'll do it. Okay, monthly giving program. Love to hear that. That is something that we talk about a lot here at Feathr, the need to kind of encourage that monthly giving, recurring giving. It can be hard, I think, to get started with that, but you see a huge return on those efforts if you just get people to sign up for monthly gifts instead of just always asking for those one-time gifts, which can be a much bigger ask. So just general online fundraising campaigns. All right. Oh, so the question is, what email campaign do you have coming up, or what email campaign are you currently working on that you are looking to level up through joining this webinar and any other kind of efforts you're taking to level up email marketing? Just want to get, it seems like a lot of summer campaigns, a lot of fundraising, maybe even sort of getting prepped for end of year stuff because you can never start too early with that. Annual school supply. Yeah, obviously with kids getting out of school, I think there's going to be a lot of end of school, summer things happening, general fundraising. Alrighty, glad. Thanks for the participation. Keep dropping things in here, but yeah, glad to see that everyone's got something top of mind, and I hope that today you take away at least a few things that are helpful or get you kind of inspired, get your wheels turning. I find a limited time fundraising campaign easier than recurring general. Yeah, that's for sure easier. And I think it's because it's just more familiar. It's kind of more of the traditional thing is you put a lot of effort into one big ask and you kind of build up to that. But one of the things that we see across nonprofits is that the ones that invest effort in creating a really solid monthly or recurring donor program, they get higher ROI from those efforts. So just setting up even automated emails that are happening in the background to kind of stay on people's radars, thank them, share impact, and get them to sign up for even a smaller amount per month, but that actually adds up to more donations over time. So a lot of nonprofits that do invest in creating that kind of recurring monthly donation strategy definitely see results from that. So it can be hard to get it set up, but it's definitely worth the effort. But obviously we understand that, so much goes into just the like, what do I have to knock out today? What is the big campaign happening? So there's a lot of legitimate reasons why recurring donation efforts kind of get backburnered a lot, but we always want to encourage you to think about that as well. Okay, cool. I want to go ahead and get started because we're going to cover a lot today, but thank you everyone for joining. And for anyone who's just joined, we're going to be talking about fundraising emails today. So how you can kind of stand out in the inbox, spark curiosity, get people to engage with your email content and actually go to your site and do whatever you want them to do. In this case, for most of you, it's making a donation. I'm Isa Hasty. I'm the Senior Content Marketing Manager here at Feathr. The slide deck and recording will be sent out tomorrow, so take a look in your inbox tomorrow morning for that. But I included my email here just in case you want to reach out to me Always happy to hear from nonprofits if you have any, questions about the webinar content, if you have any topics that you'd like for me to cover in a future webinar, I'm all ears. So always feel free to reach out to me there. For anyone who is new to Feathr, unfamiliar, Feathr is trusted by more than 1,500 nonprofits. So this is just kind of a glimpse of the types of nonprofits that we serve. So as you can see, all over the spectrum in terms of sectors. So hopefully one of these logos kind of resonates or feels familiar in terms of what you are working on at your organization. But we help a lot of different organizations meet their goals, meet their marketing goals. And so we are the nonprofit digital marketing platform. And what does that actually look like? So for different organizations, obviously, there's different goals, but growth is sort of the thing that we focus on, whatever that looks like for you. So this local YMCA chapter, the YMCA of Metropolitan Fort Worth, they were able to reach relevant members in their community with ads, digital ads through Feathr, promoting summer programs, after school care programs, health services, gym memberships, things like that. And they were able to get in front of the most relevant people. So obviously everyone knows the YMCA, but getting in front of the people who are most likely to join or to sign up for a program or to sign their kid up for something, you can actually figure out who those people are and serve them ads directly. And see who's visiting your website and follow up with them with more personalized information. And then this is the Society of American Military Engineers. So this is an association. They were able to drive up attendance to their annual event by 235 ticket sales through Feathr digital ads. So this is obviously growing events. That's one big use case that we help with. Palmetto Community Care is an amazing health organization, and they have an annual fundraiser called Charleston Beer Fest, and they were able to sell 1,000 additional tickets to the Beer Fest through targeted digital ads and targeted email campaigns through Feathr. And then last but not least, Christian Relief Fund. So they use Feathr and they used us last year, end of year, to drive donations. And so they were doing a lot of different campaigns with email, social media, digital ads, all through Feathr to get in front of the right people, to get more child sponsorships and drive those end of year donations. So, obviously growth looks different for different organizations, but I'm assuming most of you are looking to grow at least one of these things. So whether that's awareness, sort of general community awareness, growing in events, whether that's a fundraiser, a big annual event, a gala, something like that, bigger impact, just showing up in front of the right people, amplifying your mission, and ultimately driving more money, driving those donations. So Feathr has helped lots of nonprofits do all of these things. And we'd love to help you if you are not on board yet. I'm sure there's a lot of Feathr users on here, but lots of tools to help make all of that easy. So that's enough with plugging that. I wanted to also really quickly plug our weekly newsletter. I think this is a really, really helpful resource for nonprofits that are looking for sort of tips and tricks every week, industry news, updates, things that are happening. So if you would like for us to actually just get you subscribed to this, I'm going to launch a quick poll. If you want to subscribe for this without having to actually do anything or click anything, go ahead and drop a yes in here. Awesome. A lot of people are already subscribed. Love to see it. But yeah, just drop a yes and we will go ahead and subscribe you. You don't have to do anything and you will start getting these Wednesday morning. We promote these webinars, so the ones that like this one that we're hosting right now, other events that Feathr is attending, as well as all kinds of other things from the industry. So other organizations, other tech providers, resources that they're sharing, useful templates and practical tips. So hopefully you all find it helpful. Yeah, so many people are already subscribed. Love to see that. Okay, so keep dropping those answers in, and I'm going to move on. Also, if you hear any weird noises, my cat is in the background meowing, so pardon that if it is audible. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide here. Okay, so just a quick agenda. What are we going to cover today? So I'm going to go into just sort of generally, briefly, the power of email in fundraising specifically, so why it's so impactful for nonprofits. Talking all about subject lines, how to get opens, how to show up and stand out in that inbox, so people actually click through to your email and see all of the hard work that you've put into the email. Tips for layout, storytelling, CTAs, all of that. So sort of things that you can A/B test, ways that you can think about telling your story, And I'm going to be showing real examples sort of throughout the presentation to support a lot of the advice that I'm giving, just to kind of make it feel more tangible and real and hopefully give you some inspiration on layout and language and things like that. And then we'll talk a little bit about the personalization aspect, getting really targeted in your timing, your follow-up, how to, like I said before, sort of stay on people's radar year round, not just when you're making a big ask. So we'll talk about sort of the logistical aspect of maximizing your email campaigns. All right, so why is email the backbone of fundraising? So email accounted for 28% of online revenue for nonprofits last year, according to M&R Benchmarks report. So, you ideally have an email platform that is built into a marketing platform that offers you lots of different channels. So you might just have an email platform, but you might also have one that lets you, so for example, Feathr or a lot of other platforms let you do email, some digital ads, some social media, things like that. And so email should be a relatively cost-effective channel for you. It can be really low cost. You're reaching a broad audience. So anyone who's ever given you their email, right? People who've come to events, people who've donated, people who've made an online purchase, any of those people whose emails you have, you can reach them in their inbox, which is a place that they're checking every day. We know that people trust the inbox. We know that people are there. Obviously, you have to put effort into standing out and making sure that they actually are going to see you and open your email, but people are in their email inboxes, and that is a place that they trust and they will see you. And so the reach is broad. You don't want to be emailing everybody all the time. That's where segmentation comes in, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But the email inbox is absolutely a place where you can get very segmented, very targeted, and it is a medium that people trust, particularly when it comes to taking out their wallet and making purchases. So, a lot of retail companies reach us by email. We get the, purchase confirmation emails. We get cart abandonment emails from retail companies. And so we're used to associating email with a safe place to enter credit card information and follow through online. And so I think that, the same thing applies to expecting people to make donations. You're expecting them to pull out their wallet. Some amount of trust needs to be a part of that process. And so email is definitely a place where you should be reaching donors and potential donors. Um, and like I said, it's just highly cost effective. So you can drive a lot of meaningful engagement, a lot of ROI through relatively small investments in the channel. It's important to keep in mind, however, that the inbox is a crowded place. So obviously a lot of what we're going to talk about today in terms of optimizing your subject lines and standing out, that's helpful. But you want to make sure that you are leveraging ad retargeting, social media efforts, making sure that you're running marketing and outreach efforts on all of the other channels that you can to show up in all of the places where people might see you. So you want to give people that kind of cohesive experience with your mission, with your organization, stay on their radars. And so, yeah, it's important to make sure that you're supplementing your email efforts with other efforts. And so we're not going to get into digital advertising today. We have plenty of content on that on Feathr's website. I've done a lot of webinars, so you can find some webinar replays on retargeting, digital ad campaigns, ways to get in front of net new people through digital ads. So there's a lot you can do there. Obviously, email is a focus today, but you want to have a holistic omni-channel approach, and email should be part of that. Okay, and then let's see here. And another thing to keep in mind is just the way that omni-channel marketing works is that if somebody, for example, is scrolling on Facebook, maybe they see an ad for your organization, they click and they go to your donate page, but then they don't donate. You can actually set up a triggered email to go out 30 minutes after that saying, hey, saw you were, checking out our donation page, or hey, complete your donation. So there's a lot you can do in terms of setting up the different mediums to work in tandem with each other to create sort of an automated experience for people where they feel, okay, I'm clearly like being targeted with some kind of personalized experience. This organization really wants me to make a donation and to participate. So a lot you can do there. Yeah, Kirk, that's a good point. I mean, there's a lot of scams happening. I know that that's very much a thing. So that part of this is building trust with your email list. So making sure that, you become a name that they associate with links that aren't scammy. So you want to be, making sure that you're, using an email platform that, provides you with all of the tools you need, good deliverability, keeping an eye on just like email health in general, which the right platform can help you do. Keeping track of metrics, making sure that your bounce rates and unsubscribe rates aren't, too high. And so your email health needs to be in good standing. But otherwise, there's not much you can do. I mean, scams are everywhere, but I think the important thing is to build trust with your audience and make sure that they feel like when you're sending them something, it's valuable. Buttons look legitimate and accessible. People are clicking through to your website, landing on a page, that is a legitimate page on your website. So there's a lot I think that you all should be doing to make sure that you're testing the flow of the donor sort of experience. So when you're setting up an email campaign, make sure that you're also opening it on mobile, clicking the buttons, making sure all the links work, making sure all the buttons work, testing everything thoroughly on mobile, on desktop, all of these things. But as long as you are sending, legitimate things and building trust with your audience, that's basically all you can do these days. But email is, I think a medium that people still largely trust, especially from organizations that they're familiar with. Okay, so let's get into subject lines. So your subject line essentially sets the stage, right? So if somebody isn't going to notice your subject line or doesn't care or doesn't see it or whatever, nothing else gets read. And so that's wasted effort. So you want to keep it engaging, short, compelling. The recommendation is to keep it under 50 characters. Emails with personalized subject lines actually are much more likely to be opened, so 26% more likely to be opened according to Campaign Monitor. So what I mean by that is when you have some unique identifier in the subject line, so like a name, or even, if you're pulling in other information from your CRM, like last date that they gave, you could even do like an anniversary of giving. It's been a year since you gave. That could be a subject line. So there's a lot you can do there. You can get creative with what you actually want to use to personalize subject lines. But first name is a really great place to start. It's an easy one. Most email providers should offer you the option to pull in dynamic content like this into the subject line. And this can really uptick the open rates here. And then just in terms of benchmarks for nonprofits, you want to be aiming for open rates of about 25% or above. So if you're hovering around there, great. Always aim for higher. If you're well above this, awesome. If you have email rates way above 25%, drop them in. I just want to see if anyone's like seeing really high success with email open rates. Because every now and then I'll come across a nonprofit that has like 48% email open rates, and it's like, oof, yeah, 42, amazing. Love to see it. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Feel free to drop in any tips in the chat that you feel like are working. Yeah, 48. Love it. I was almost randomly saying that number, but I'm seeing a lot of 48s. Love that. Um, Consistently over 50, wonderful. Yeah, please like drop a few tips in the chat, like even some subject lines that you've used that have worked, just to kind of give some inspo or insight to the rest of the group, because I'd love to see kind of what is working for people. In terms of the actual phrasing and things you're using. Are you using emojis? Are you not using them? A lot of this is like up to your organization to test, but yeah, go ahead and drop some tips or some actual subject lines, please. I'd love to see what's working for people. One relevant emoji in the subject line. Because obviously you have to be wary of using too many emojis. It can look scammy, but we actually find at Feathr through our email marketing that sometimes emojis do work. We do a lot of A/B testing with that. Sometimes we'll send an email and put an emoji in test A and not in test B. So you can literally easily test things like emoji use. Personalization has been a huge part of our strategy, and also providing a value before the donation call. Yep. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And like we were saying before, and we'll get into this later, you want to make sure that you're always providing value. You're not just asking for things, because people don't have the kind of time to just only be concerned with your mission if you're only ever asking for things. People expect value in exchange for their time and for their money. When we go to any events, we have a physical sign-up sheet, so our consumers want to receive the emails, and we only send emails 2 to 3 times a month. Okay. Great. Yeah, and I think like the frequency of sending emails is very specific to organizations. I think it's very case by case, because we see a lot of organizations that don't send emails very frequently, and they could actually afford to send them more often. And then on the other hand, sometimes bombarding people's inbox is not the move. And if they only see you every now and then and they're looking forward to it, expecting it, it might, be a welcome thing to receive and they'll be more likely to open it. So again, testing is everything, testing what works, for your organization specifically and repeating what works and stopping what's not working. Um, okay, yeah, really cool stuff here. Um, so Autumn, I don't really have an answer for that. So what's my recommendation for the number that is too many emails in a month? Some organizations send 2 or 3 emails a week. Some send one every day. Some send 2 or 3 a month. It really, really depends. This is very much something that you have to test at your organization. You want to make sure that you have a platform that allows you to suppress people who are unengaged as well. You don't want to be sending a lot of emails every week to people who are not opening your emails, and that will also negatively impact your deliverability and your email health. So there's a lot of factors to keep in mind, again, which your email platform should take care of all of that for you. So you don't have to be learning all of the technical aspects of that, but you want to just test it out, and I think the biggest recommendation I have is to make sure you're balancing asks with value. And so, I think when you're providing impact stories, imagery of volunteers, doing things, events that you've hosted, things like that, stories of beneficiaries receiving your services, there's a lot that you have in terms of resources and materials and assets that you can use and leverage in your email marketing to share more than just, here's our mission, give us money. There's a lot you can do to get creative with sharing your story. And that is a huge piece of what you should be doing when you're doing your email marketing. And I think when you're doing that and you're providing value and sharing impact, it feels less like bombardment than when you're only ever asking for things. And so hopefully that kind of helps. But again, it's just really testing in terms of frequency, timing. So I can give you all the best practices in the world, but ultimately, they may or may not work for your organization. So a lot of this is just sort of things that tend to work, but you have to test them out and see what works. 2 times a week, plus some smaller weekend emails that are pure cultivation and smaller opted-in lists. Yeah, so making sure that you're segmenting your lists and, if you have highly engaged people, you can reach out to them more often, as opposed to people who are less engaged. You don't want to be emailing them all the time. Okay, I'm going to pivot back over to the presentation, but keep the questions coming and I'll get to them as I can throughout and at the end. Okay, so let's talk about some subject lines. So, oh, sorry. We already did that slide. Okay, cool. Now on to like some specific examples of subject lines. So I just included a few here that I think do a great job of creating urgency. So urgency works because people value opportunities that might feel limited or fleeting, right? Or sort of time sensitive and create FOMO, fear of missing out. And so it's this sort of idea that a unique opportunity might pass them by if they don't take action now. So it's pretty basic concept, and I'm sure a lot of you use this concept in your subject lines, but I think it's worth sort of focusing on and talking a little bit about, showing some examples. Yeah, you want to make sure that you are, building up to the final ask, with gentle reminders, through well-timed emails. And so people are gonna, if they see this urgency, you want to make sure that this isn't the first thing they're seeing from you, right? You want to have built up to this more urgent ask through those impact stories, through, learn more, come to our website, and then they visit your website. Maybe they visit your donate page, but don't make a donation. And so these sort of urgent subject lines would be for people who have been engaged but haven't taken that final step. And then, okay, here, you've only got a limited time left, please do it. And that drives a lot of engagement. And so just some examples here. So, join 100 donors who've already stepped up today. So if it's like, especially with these giving days, with Giving Tuesday, there's other local giving days. So using, 24 hours, today in the subject line can be impactful for making people realize, okay, I got to go get my wallet now because this is going to be over at midnight. One click away from changing lives, 24 hours to make an impact, act now, clock is ticking. So lots of ways that you can sort of leverage this sense of urgency in your subject line. Let's see here. And so then creating intrigue. So kind of leaving the reader wanting more. You don't want to reveal everything up front. So some phrases like find out, discover, you won't believe. So kind of engaging that curiosity, but and being specific enough that it doesn't feel spammy, but not giving everything away. So you might mention some impact or benefit, but you want to keep sort of most of the details behind the fold so that they click through. Appealing to emotion can be a great thing to include here when you're trying to build intrigue and make sure you're always tying it back to your mission. So just a few examples here. A story of hope you won't want to miss. So a lot of this might be like impact stories that you're sharing in order to drive a conversion or a donation. Did you know you can feed a family for just $20? So those dollar impact statements can actually go a long way. We encourage you to use dollar impact statements in general, especially in digital ads as well, because they can be a really sort of concise, quick, digestible way to show, like, if you give us this amount of money, this is what will happen. So it's great for really small amounts of text where you need to really make an impact. Dollar impact statements go a long way, especially with younger donors and younger supporters who want to kind of see the tangible impact and real dollar amount impact of the money that they're giving. Um, your kindness could change a child's future, so a little bit more sort of appealing to emotion there. Surprising way you can make an impact today. So that's kind of the intrigue here, as well as the urgency, like we talked about. So kind of combining those two. So there's a lot you can do here, but these are just a few examples. Yes, I will be sending out the webinar recording and the deck tomorrow morning. So you will receive that in your inbox. Okay, let's get into some tips for layout, storytelling, and calls to action. All right, so a lot of this probably goes without saying, but I want to just kind of review it, make sure everyone's on the same page. So you want to make sure you're keeping things clean and easy to read in the body of your email. So using a mobile-friendly format as well, 50 to 70% of emails are opened on mobile nowadays. And so you want to make sure that your emails are mobile friendly. So test for that, as well as all of the pages on your website that you're leading people to. So your homepage, your donate page, other key pages need to be mobile friendly so that there's this user-friendly flow from email to website or from digital ad to website, from Facebook to your website, right? So making sure that everything is mobile friendly. Again, you should be going through this process regularly, checking links, checking the flow, making sure it's, user-friendly and intuitive for people and that everything looks good. Buttons are big enough on mobile to actually click, all of these things. And then in terms of just layout, breaking up the text with headers, clear headers, bullet points, images, making things easy to consume. And we'll get into a little bit more detail on all of those in a minute, but just avoiding clutter, focusing on a singular clear message is key. So I wanted to include just a few specific examples of emails that I thought did a good job of one or more of these things. So I think that this is just a visually beautiful email. Obviously, this is a Chinese garden that has all of these beautiful photos, and it's just easy, low-hanging fruit in terms of pretty imagery, right? Not all organizations have this kind of aesthetically pleasing imagery, but if you do, lean into it hard. And I also liked that this email has the CTA, the button at the top. So this is something that we actually have been doing in our marketing emails at Feathr as well, sort of including the CTA button at the bottom as we normally do, but also duplicating it and including it at the top under the header, but above the body copy. Because I think it kind of allows people who don't have time or patience to scroll through and scroll down to still see that there's a CTA there. So if people are interested enough to open your email, but don't have the time to scroll down, and if you have to scroll below the fold to see the button, that could be a wasted opportunity. So it's worth testing it. It might not work for your organization, but we've found at Feathr that it works for us. And clearly this organization has at least tested this, if not uses it regularly. And so I think it's a cool way to just kind of bring that up, make it more prominent, and let people, click immediately if they're interested. Um, and then, yeah, using imagery that evokes emotion to drive action. So whether you have, aesthetically appealing places, if you're a theater that has cool photos from shows, or a museum that has really beautiful photos of your artwork, things like that. If you are a family services org or a children's services org, showing images of people being helped by the donations or by the services. Even volunteer photo ops can be great. So next time you have volunteers, take some photos, include those in impact stories or email headers, or just imagery throughout your email to kind of show, okay, there's real people working toward this real cause. And we'll talk a little bit about imagery in a second because I think there's some sensitivity around imagery for some orgs, so I want to address that. But here's just another example. Again, saving baby snow leopards is a great, there's great photo ops here. This is obviously really cute, easy imagery to kind of land on and use in your emails. But even if, you don't have easy imagery to pull from like this of animals or flowers or things like that, you can find imagery that inspires and engages. So what I want to talk about is this idea that, or this issue of some organizations struggling with, um, yeah, Corey. I think that there's, a lot of privacy issues, sensitive topics. If you're working, if you're a health organization or a family services organization, domestic violence, things like that. There's a lot of organizations that are doing really important, amazing work. You have to get your mission out there. You need to get those donations coming in, and you want to share imagery and impact and show that through imagery. But it's sensitive and you can't show your actual beneficiaries. You maybe can't show volunteers, things like that. So I think there's still ways to bring imagery in. Again, this is going to depend on, the legality and the sort of privacy, of your specific organization and the rules and regulations. But tools like Canva have really great stock imagery that you can pull in. So for example, if you are a health services organization, you could show imagery of people in a clinical setting or happy people in a clinical setting. If you're a food bank, you could show images of families receiving food or people volunteering, and they don't have to be your beneficiaries or your volunteers, right? And so I think there's ways, if you're comfortable with it and if you're allowed to do it, to test out pulling in imagery in that way, to make things more visually engaging, because ultimately visuals like this obviously are the most impactful thing. People see an image and they feel drawn to it, they feel connected, if it's people, animals, whatever. And so doing that whenever you can, I think is really key, and finding ways to sort of work around the limitations that you might have because of the sensitivity, the sensitive nature of your mission. So, um, yeah, again, do what feels appropriate for your cause and for your audience. But yeah, and then, okay, Kara said you might want to consider showing close-ups of actions, gestures without faces, use hands receiving services, like getting keys. I love that. Yeah, getting outreach meals. Yep, that's a great point. So again, there's plenty of stock imagery that you can use of people who are not, your audience, your people, and that can work. Or if you want to make it a little bit like more anonymous even and just use sort of imagery that evokes whatever service you're delivering or whatever your mission is. I think there's ways to do it. So just kind of want to encourage you to lean into visuals and imagery as much as you can and figure out ways to make it work, because there are ways to do it and it's highly impactful. For one of my orgs, we use child models, usually staff kids, and make a note in all of our materials that they're not clients, but representative of our service population. Yeah, that's a great point. So disclaimers can be a really easy way um, to get around this issue. So yeah, again, do whatever makes sense for you, but I just wanted to kind of address that topic because I know it's a big one that might prevent you from even thinking about using imagery, but I think there's important ways to do it. Okay. So let's look at a few more examples. So this is an email from the St. Louis area food bank. So I really like this email header because I actually feel like it almost could be an ad on its own. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting. So there's this sort of little statement about it's not too late to make a difference. So kind of telling people why they're receiving the email. $25 provides 100 meals, impact statement right there, dollar impact statement. They even have their logo, donate before the end of the year, so driving that urgency. The imagery is great, so that it's just like an amazingly impactful email header. Like someone could just see that and click on it and be like, I know what I'm getting myself into here. Obviously, it's an email, so there's some body copy here along with another CTA. And some more impact statements here, so someone might actually click on the button. One thing is that in most cases you should link, like an email header like this, you should link this, hyperlink it to whatever this button is. So this is probably going to their donation page. This image should also be linked to the donation page because somebody might actually want to click. And so usually the default is that in an email header, if you don't set a hyperlink, you click into the image and it'll just enlarge the image, right? In Gmail and a lot of other providers. And so if you actually hyperlink that email header, that can take people to your donate page. And provide a quicker way for them to get to where you're trying to send them. Okay, and one more example here from another Feathr user. This is the Peninsula Community Foundation of Virginia. So they have a local giving day called Give Local 757. And this is one of the emails that they sent. So I think this is just a cute, sort of driving urgency with the clock, showing the Give Local 757 logo, which is a highly recognizable logo for that area. People know about this giving day and referencing the specific amount of time left. So they do that in the body copy here, less than 7 hours remaining. Displaying familiar logos. So like I said, displaying this. If there's other, logos that are relevant to the Giving Day or anything, you can include those. Giving Tuesday is another logo that has great brand recognition. So including that in your Giving Tuesday campaigns whenever you can draw the eye, feels trustworthy. And then reminding them of gift matches or any other details of reasons to give. So if you are able to do a gift match, that always results in much higher participation. So always highlight anything that you're offering in terms of gift matching or incentives to give. Highlight those as much as you can in your emails as well, and as high up as possible. Um, Mm, okay, I'll get to this question in a little bit. Okay, and then countdown timers are another really cool way to drive urgency, and I think they're just kind of cute and engaging. So these are both emails that were created in Feathr's email builder. And so this is from the Japan America Society of Washington, D.C., another organization that has just really beautiful imagery because they have like a cherry blossom festival in D.C. and all kinds of really beautiful events. So their imagery is always on point. And I think this is just an absolutely beautiful email template that this user created. And she did this countdown timer. And so obviously it's 00 because I took this screenshot after the campaign launched, after the event happened. But this would theoretically tell you, the number of days, hours, minutes, and seconds until the event. And it's counting down as someone has the email open. So it's very dynamic and engaging. And then same for this. So this is that Charleston Beer Fest that I mentioned earlier from Palmetto Community Care in South Carolina. And so they also included the countdown timer for people who were purchasing tickets. So just kind of driving that urgency, 2 days away, purchase your ticket now. So I think this can be a great tool for just including that in your email, especially as the event is quickly approaching. And then this, I just wanted to highlight, you want to make sure you have an email provider that offers you all of the sort of basic performance metrics like open rates, click-through rates, but also being able to see the specific number of conversions that come from an individual email is really key to seeing sort of what emails worked in this last campaign, what types of emails should we duplicate in a future campaign. And so for example, with this email from Japan America Society, they drove 681 event registrations to this festival. And obviously they drove many more through other emails and other digital ad efforts, but just kind of seeing, okay, 681 registrations came just from this email. So obviously this was impactful. What can we replicate from this in another email, right? All right, let's talk about body copy a little bit. So capturing attention immediately with a compelling story, a powerful statistic, an emotional question. So these are all things that you want to kind of include high up. And again, keeping your body copy as short and concise as possible. I see a lot of organizations, a lot of nonprofits write really, really lengthy emails with long paragraphs. So I think in terms of formatting, there's a lot you can do to kind of shorten things, make things short and sweet and more digestible. And then in terms of the actual content, making sure that there's something that people can kind of sink their teeth into and take away. So whether that's something like 1 in 5 children in our community go to bed hungry every night, that's obviously impactful, upsetting, would stick with somebody, or something a little bit more emotional like this one here. And then, what if you could change a child's future with $10? So again, just referencing a specific dollar amount that feels like a reasonable amount to give, and just making that kind of the central point of the email body copy, right? And everything else should support that main point or that main ask. And then the opening line sets the tone for the rest of your email. So what I like to do in marketing emails a lot is kind of have some kind of opening line, whether it's something like this, or, obviously Feathr is doing different types of email marketing than nonprofits, but whatever it is that we're trying to do, whether it's getting you all to register for a webinar or something, right? I might take away, what is the main thing that I want people to take away from this webinar? What is the main thing I hope they learn? That is sort of the value proposition. And I'll include that as either like an email subheader under the header image or the first line of copy and then hit enter, right? Like whatever that is, I want that to stand out, be its own line, and anything else I say comes under that and supports it with bullets, with some short paragraphs, but sort of figuring out what is the main value prop of this email, what is the thing I want people to take away from it, making that front and center, and then building on that, but kind of giving it its own space, giving it some breathing room, if you will. And then again, email headers can go a long way. So one thing that we've found really works is when we're promoting Feathr case studies, kind of showcasing how other nonprofits are using Feathr. I like to sort of pull testimonials like this and an image of the user. So I think there's a lot you can do. Again, Canva is a great tool. There's a lot you can do in Feathr to actually build email headers that look really nice, but sort of pulling in images of people's faces, things people have said. So volunteer testimonials, beneficiary testimonials, if that's something that you are legally allowed to share, things that will go a long way. You can actually incorporate those visually into email headers. This is a community theater in Memphis called Playhouse on the Square, and so they obviously have really cool pictures of the shows that they host, and they include those in their emails just at the top there to drive engagement. Again, making sure that you're linking these email headers to the page that you want people to go to in the email. Yeah, Playhouse on the Square is an amazing organization. Do you live in Memphis, Susie? Uh, okay. And then less is more. So again, just overwhelming. Okay, yeah. No, I love that organization. I love Taylor, our main Feathr user, our contact there. He's wonderful. Okay, and so yeah, with body copy, you want to make sure that you are sticking to one key message. So I kind of already said all of this, but keep paragraphs short. When in doubt, press enter. So if you are like typing a bunch of sentences and you're like, this paragraph feels kind of long, find a natural break point and hit enter. I swear it works. Like paragraphs that are 2 or 3 lines and just with lots of space in between, that type of email is much more digestible. So even if you've tended to write sort of more like novel style, prose style emails, try to get away from that if it feels appropriate. Again, sometimes if you're sending, a letter from your executive director, something like that, it might make more sense to have it be sort of a more formal, text heavy thing. But a lot of the time when you're just asking for something or sharing a story or just trying to stay on people's radars, you don't need to be sending them a novel. You just need to make that one sort of main value point that we talked about, support it with some impact stories, some evidence, some stats, things like that, have a button, and ultimately you want to get them out of the email and to your website or to wherever you're trying to send them. You don't want them to stay in the email forever because it's taking them so long to read, right? You want them to take action, and one way to do that is to keep your emails short and sweet when appropriate. Bullet points, bolded text for emphasis, not too much, but things like that can really help break up the text. And then impactful scannable language. So just a couple of examples here. This is obviously a much more long-winded kind of wordy way of saying the same thing here. So, you guys can read these for yourselves, but the sort of shorter version is just your gift provides shelter, food, and education to families who need it most. Join us today to make an impact. That's all you're really trying to say. This just is a lot of text. And this isn't even that long, right? But it's like still, when you compare them, you don't need to say all this if you can just say this. And trying to apply this logic to all of the paragraphs in your emails and all of the copy that you're writing can just be really helpful. Okay, another example of an email from a Feathr user. So this is the Food Bank of Northern Nevada. So sort of leaning into holiday spirit or other seasonal landmarks when relevant. So obviously Thanksgiving was approaching when this email was sent out. So they're kind of tapping into the seasonal spirit there, reminding people of the impact they've already had. And so, sometimes you're reaching people who've given before, so you want to kind of reference that and say, your donation had this kind of impact last year, give again, just, really appealing to people's sense of wanting to be helpful and know that their contributions are meaningful. And yeah, again, dollar impact statements go a long way. A dollar helps provide 3 meals to a neighbor in need. So anything you can do to quantify that and turn it into an impact statement can really work well. This is again the same organization as before, Peninsula Community Foundation. And so this I thought was a cool example of offering practical incentives for people to donate. So educating your audience on actually the benefits of charitable donations, suggesting specific ways for them to give. Sometimes there's like a, tax related deadline coming up or something where you might actually do a campaign to encourage people to give because they will have some tax write-offs or benefits from giving to your organization. So educating people on what that looks like and why it might make sense for them to give at that point um, in the year can be helpful because not everyone is educated on these things. And so your organization, you can kind of take it upon yourself to be like, hey, I'm going to tell you how this works. And also in the meantime, give to my organization. It's a win-win. All right, and then let's talk about CTAs. So emails with CTAs generate 371% more clicks. So obviously you want to be investing a lot of effort in your calls to action. Never let it be an afterthought. So make sure you're spending a lot of time figuring out what language works, what colors work, what format works, whether you want to put it at the top and the bottom, right? Like we talked about before. It is the most important part of your email once someone has opened your email because it tells them what to do next and it takes them to that place, makes it easy for them to act, to give, to sign up for something, to buy a ticket, whatever that looks like. And just a quick benchmark here, you want to be aiming for a click-through rate between 2.7 and 3.3%. So again, if you are around that or over it, congratulations, keep doing what you're doing. But yeah, that is sort of the general benchmark that nonprofits should be thinking about. Just some examples of some clear, effective CTAs. So donate now to change a life, become a member today, feed a family today with your gift. Dollars again, dollar impact, your $20 gift provides meals for 10 children. And so definitely test out different lengths of your CTAs, test out copy, make sure that it's clear, substantive. Don't ever use click here. Again, coming back to the comment in the chat about things feeling scammy, you want to make sure that the CTA copy feels relevant to the page that you're taking someone to and feels like language that they trust and are familiar with when it comes to your brand. So don't say click here, don't have like the word link or anything in there, right? You want it to be meaningful language that feels trustworthy. And then be as direct as possible. Don't, I think sometimes I see ads and email, CTAs that say learn more. That can be appropriate for sort of top of the funnel, someone who's never heard of you before, and you just want to get them to your website for the first time to learn more. Learn more can be an okay thing to say, but there's always other ways to sort of say the same thing, but make it a little bit more like make it feel a little bit more informative as to like what they're going to get. So something like see impact stories or learn how you can help, learn how to support your community. You can even name the community or the town, right? Hear volunteer stories, something like that. So if you're sending them to a specific page to learn more, you can reference what's on that page rather than just saying learn more. So there's nothing wrong with like sort of being a little bit vague with top of the funnel marketing, but I think it's important to, yeah, be as specific as you can without making it too long. Um, yes, Sarah, you should be hyperlinking the text in the button. So if it's a button, you want to make sure that, the whole thing, wherever they can click in the button is going to take them to that page. If you're using another thing that, a lot of emails, a lot of the time we do this and a lot of nonprofits do this, is that you'll have a button that is, hyperlinked. The whole thing should be hyperlinked, but then you might also hyperlink a little bit of text in the body copy. This just can just give people a few different ways to choose, how to get through to that link. And so that, yeah, whatever text you're selecting should all be hyperlinked. So anything, that you want people to be able to easily click on and get to the page, make sure that the whole line is hyperlinked. Okay. And then in terms of the actual format and design for CTAs, you want to make sure that you're using contrasting colors to draw attention. So orange on white is a common one. We've been using in some of our marketing, we've been using kind of a teal color on white. So obviously this needs to be relative to, whatever your brand colors and brand guidelines are, but definitely test out, different things in terms of accessibility and contrast to see what works. Make sure the button is large enough to click, especially on mobile. So again, coming back to just making sure you're testing that user flow on mobile yourself and not just hoping that everything is rendering right. Placement. So again, at the top here and at the bottom after they scroll. You don't have to do this, but I think it can be really impactful, so it's worth testing out. And then just to give you a couple of resources for testing accessibility, because this is becoming increasingly important to make sure that you are making your buttons and your visuals and even your website accessible in terms of colors and contrast and all of these things. Something might actually look really accessible to the naked eye, but actually it's not considered accessible. Through these tools. And so this is a great, I just listed a couple that we use here internally at Feathr to test our website and our emails. This one is particularly good for websites, but you can also use it to test emails, buttons, all of that, testing ads, ad buttons, all of that stuff. And then this is another one that my colleague recommended. So I included both of these here. Feel free to check them out. Highly recommend you use these to make sure that accessibility is becoming part of your email marketing efforts and all of your marketing efforts. So test your website as well. And again, just a reminder, I will be sending out this deck, so you will have access to this and you can click through these links once you get that. And then getting creative with framing. I think it's just cool. This is a really cool example that I love. I reference this one a lot because I think a lot of nonprofits could do something like this, but you might not think about it unless you kind of have an example to sort of get inspired from. So I love this. This is a YouTuber named Mr. Beast. A lot of you might recognize this guy here. He partnered up with the Ocean Conservancy to do an ocean cleanup project, basically. And instead of asking for a dollar amount here, they equated this to, okay, every $1 is one less pound of trash in the ocean, and then asking people how many pounds of trash they wanted removed from the ocean. So this is a lot more impactful than how many of your dollars you want to give. It's like, okay, how many pounds? I want all of the pounds of trash removed, right? But maybe I can only give 20, so I'll do this. But I think it's just a really cool way to sort of flip the ask around a little bit and frame it differently. And so just some examples of ways that other types of nonprofits could do this, like how can you sort of translate your ask or your CTA into something a little bit more fun? So, if you are feeding children, for example, and you can kind of equate a dollar amount to the number of children that you could feed in a week with some dollar amount, how many children would you like to feed this week? Or every $25 gets one animal spayed or neutered, or something like that. So sort of thinking about a way to frame that dollar impact or that impact into a CTA that makes people think, okay, I'm not just giving my money here, I'm having a real impact. And, I think people are a lot more likely to want to give more if it's being equated to an actual specific quantitative amount of impact versus just the dollar amount. So I thought this was really cool. And yeah, just to kind of think about some ways that you might be able to leverage something like this for your cause. So quick checklist. Again, this will be going out tomorrow, so you'll have this in your inbox, but I think this is a useful kind of just like main beats of before you're sending an email. Is your subject line engaging? Is it personalized? Have you pulled in a name or something personalized and uniquely identifying that is going to stand out in the inbox? Does the layout look good on mobile? Have you tested it? Have you tested all the links, all the buttons? Is your story clear and compelling? Is there one clear thing that you want people to do? And is it front and center? Is it easy to digest? Do you have a bold, easy to click CTA? Have you tested for accessibility? All of these things. And then, yeah, tested links, buttons, making sure everything works. And then I want to just really quickly get into a little bit of like sort of logistical tips on personalization, timing, things like that. So leveraging key dates. So obviously end of year, Giving Tuesday, these are times of the year when there's a lot you can sort of lean into in terms of the spirit of giving and holiday, charitability, things like that. So do that when you can for sure. Again, like I said, a countdown to the year-end tax deadline, things like that. So it doesn't just have to be holidays, but those obviously are really popular ones for driving donations. This is World Hope International. This is a Feathr user, and I just think this is a great email header. It's very clear, they're leveraging the Giving Tuesday hashtag. This is a really cute button. You can click on this email header, click on this button, or this one. And this is an example of what I was saying earlier. So having the email header linked, having some body text, body copy linked. So make it, don't make it a whole paragraph or a whole sentence, but just some key text in your body copy. You want to link that. And then also the button. And these should, in most cases, all link to the same page on your website. You don't want to be linking to different pages. You want to be guiding them to take that one action from any of these sources. And then this is, again, Peninsula Community. Obviously, I'm a fan of theirs. So this was just a holiday, end of year fundraising effort. And so be a Santa today, just kind of cute language. And again, emotional, cute imagery here can go a long way. And then in terms of optimal send times, this is really going to vary widely and depend on your organization. So this is absolutely something you want to test out. But Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays tend to have lower email volume, and so they can result in higher open rates than Mondays and Fridays. And then just thinking about the email type. So if it's more of a corporate appeal, it's better to send them during work hours when people are going to be checking their work inbox. Whereas B2C emails, so asking individual donors for donations or sending out an impact story or whatever, promoting an event, sometimes this is actually something you can send on a weekend or later in the evening when people are maybe more likely to be checking their personal email inbox on their phone or whatever. And so again, test all of this out, but those are just sort of some very sort of high level tips to get started. And then make sure that you're always following up with cart abandonment emails. So basically, people who have come to your site, done some part of what you want them to do. So maybe visited your donation page or visited your event registration page, but they haven't taken that final action. You want to make sure you're following up with a timely, relevant email that's going to feel really personalized to what they were doing, saying, hey, you were just one click away from making a difference, finish your gift. Hey, complete your purchase and come to our event. So this can be a really powerful type of email campaign that I think not enough nonprofits are using. And it's really just something that you set up and it's automated and it's automated to run in the background. So that'll create kind of a trickle of conversions that's happening alongside all of the other conversions that come through your big email blasts. It's like anyone who comes to your website and does something will then receive a relevant email for them. And that's going to look different in terms of timing for every single person, right? And that's what makes it so personalized. And it's automated. So you don't have to do anything other than set up the campaign and make sure the triggers are set up right. But this is a really great way to stay on people's radars when they have taken some kind of action but not finished. And you want to make things feel personal, so segmenting your list, group donors based on giving history. If, first-time donors versus lapsed versus major donors, you want to send different messaging to people depending on what role they've played for your organization. And then tailoring things depending on their interests or their level of engagement. So, and segmentation can also be really helpful when trying to appeal to different age groups. So a lot of younger people might not have so much money to give, so offering smaller ways they can contribute, asking for smaller amounts of money, right? And showcasing impact, staying on people's radars again with that impact, even if they haven't given or even if they've only given a small amount, and showing gratitude no matter what. So even if someone's given $5, you want to cultivate that person to hopefully become a major donor later, or at least a long-term supporter. And you can do that by cultivating that trust, thanking people, showing gratitude. It goes a long way. And then we've already said this, but using dynamic fields wherever possible, pulling people's names, pulling unique identifiers into subject lines, into greetings in your emails, things like that to really kind of stand out, call their attention, draw the eye, and make it feel personalized. And then, like I just said, sending thank you emails promptly, making sure, and this is something you can absolutely automate as well. So cart abandonment campaigns, you can automate those to send emails out when people haven't completed the action you want them to take. And then when people have completed the action you want them to take, they should also receive an automated email thanking them, encouraging them to take the next step, whatever that might look like. I assume a lot of you have this set up. If you don't, this is definitely should be a next step to set up automated thank you emails for people who have donated. And this can just be a really great way to ensure that, next time you go to ask them something, you don't think, oh my gosh, I didn't even thank them last time for that donation and now I'm asking them again. You want to make sure you're covering all your bases, thanking people, sharing value over time so that you're not just always asking for money because that does get annoying. And then following up over time. So providing value, like we've talked about, make invitations to participate in other ways. So maybe somebody who's given money might actually be interested in volunteering. So sharing some volunteer opportunities. Again, there's a lot you can do with website tracking. So if you have donors who visited your volunteer page, you can create segments in Feathr to actually create a group of those people and then send an email just to those people saying, hey, are you interested in volunteering? Here's some more information. So really kind of paying attention to what people are doing on your site, what they've done, how they've given, and what else they might be interested in, depending on what pages they're, or based on what pages they're visiting. And you can then share more information that hopefully is relevant to them and kind of keep them engaged on multiple levels, not just giving donations. And yep, staying top of mind through email newsletters, updates, event invitations, things like that, and just building trust over time. So cool. Okay, well, that wraps us up. I hope this was helpful. I'm going to go through and see if I missed any questions. But first, I wanted to launch another quick poll here, just to see if anyone is interested in getting a personalized walkthrough of Feathr. So obviously, I've talked a lot today. Oh, let's see. Um, I don't know why it's not letting me launch. Okay, drop a yes in the chat. For some reason, this is not letting me do it. Drop a yes in the chat if you are interested in a personalized walkthrough of Feathr specifically. So Feathr offers, like I said, digital advertising tools, email marketing tools. So a lot of the stuff we've talked about today, you can do in Feathr, and just lots of use cases specific to nonprofits. So we try to make the platform as nonprofit friendly as possible. Lots of relevant templates and things like this. You already have one scheduled for Monday. Love it. Yeah. So anyway, drop a yes if you would like to just chat with somebody about your organization's specific goals, kind of walk through what that could look like in Feathr and how you might be able to achieve some of that, do a lot of what we've talked about today through a platform like Feathr. But regardless of what platform you are using for email, for digital ads, I hope that, everything we talked about today is easily doable and that you feel like you can, test things and making sure that you have like great visibility of the right metrics and things like that, because those are all really important for making sure that your email marketing efforts are paying off. Because obviously you're spending I know so many of you are like overworked and there's not enough bandwidth and you're still managing to craft amazing emails and put a lot of value and pour effort into that. And so I want to make sure that that's yeah, pulling in as much um weight as it can for you because it's a lot of work. Um okay, I'm just going to quickly check and see if there's anything um okay, do you recommend the header images change based off of an email, even if in the same email campaign? Yes. For example, the launch email of a golf tournament versus the last call email of the golf tournament. Okay, yeah, that's a great question. I would say yes. I think that generally switching things up is going to be more engaging than the same image again and again. So a lot of the times, so one of a sort of similar thing is with subject lines. If you don't switch the subject line from email to email, they'll start to stack. Like if somebody reaches out to you and you have like 4 stacked emails from an organization or a company or whatever, and it's the same subject line, and it's just like you have to expand to read each email. That's what happens when you repeat subject lines. And it's not great, right? Because it doesn't kind of capture the eye. So that's why you want to use a new subject line each time. And I think a similar logic applies with imagery as well. So if people, especially if people are opening your image or your email, seeing the image, and if they're not taking action, and then you're sending them another email later in the campaign because they didn't take action, you want to be switching as many things up as you can to try to drive that engagement. So it might not have been the image that didn't work for them. Maybe there was something else. Maybe their wallet was in the other room. Maybe they just weren't interested in that moment. But to the degree that you can switch things up while still having continuity, I encourage that. So you don't want to drastically switch up the color palette and the theme or whatever, but like using a different image of a similar concept, or like for a golf tournament, I don't know like what type of images you were using. If you were using previous, like photos from the previous year, you might use like a different photo, but still have some of the language be the same, have the CTA be the same. So you want to keep some things similar, but I definitely think switching up imagery, even in subtle ways, so there's continuity, but there's some kind of something different that catches the eye, can definitely go a long way. Okay, cool. I think that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. For anyone else who wants a personalized walkthrough, I'm going to send out a follow-up email tomorrow morning with the deck and with everything. And so if you're interested in chatting with someone here about what Feathr can do for you, you can also just respond to one of those emails and we will get you signed up. So, okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And I hope this was helpful. And I hope to see you all on the next one. Take care. Bye.